Okay, so welcome everybody to this fine Monday wrap-up session. And Monday is kind of less of a wrap-up because we've done a little bit more in the way of things that happened over the weekend. So it is a little bit of a wrap-up from the weekend, from our Friday trades and so on. And it's also a big outlook for the coming week. All the things that I think are interesting happening, starting today that will hopefully play out throughout this coming week. So that's what we're going to discuss. Next, I do these wrap-up sessions or these kind of evening webinars Monday through Thursday. We obviously don't do them Friday evening. Markets are closed, all that stuff. We do them Monday through Thursday evening, along with live trading sessions in the morning, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday mornings. And we cover a lot of things, answer a lot of questions, do a lot of analysis, take a bunch of trades together, so on and so forth. On Monday, I invite everybody to come and just kind of listen in, participate, look at what I'm looking at for the coming week. And then the rest of the sessions are reserved for paying members only. So if any of you would like to attend a little bit more this week, other than just today, you can go to Day Traders FX right here and you can just click on this big Join Us button. That'll get you hooked up with a 5-day free trial. And you can spend a week with us and see what we do and see how it works and so on. So it's definitely worth getting a free trial and spending a week with us to see how we trade and see how we kind of follow through on some of these trades and setups and so on. So we'd love to have you with us, and you can get that all right at daytradersfx.com. Okay, the next thing to talk about is thank you to everybody that attended the webinar. We had a lot of people attend the webinar with Rob Booker and myself on Saturday morning. And it was excellent, and a lot of great trades have come from just some of the principles we've talked about. And it was 4 hours of fantasticness, so we just covered a lot of stuff, and I know a lot of you guys will have questions, and that was a lot of material and so on. All of it's being compiled and put on the website. For those that paid and attended, you'll have access to that, and you'll be able to see all the recordings and have a lot of written material, and it'll be great. The next thing is, for anybody that missed it and is having maybe second thoughts, which you should definitely have a look at it, we're going to teach it one more time this coming Sunday, and then that's it. So we kind of always plan to do 2 live days, a Saturday, one week, and a Sunday the next week to kind of cover all the time zones. But we're doing it Sunday evening of this coming week. So if you haven't bought the class yet, we would love to have you, and it is definitely well worth your time and money. So for anybody that wants to get involved in that, there's the page. You can attend one more live session that we'll be doing on Sunday. For all those that paid and attended this previous Saturday, of course you're welcome to attend again. We will cover a few different things, but for the most part it's going to be a lot of review of everything we covered last time. So it's going to be really good to go to and just kind of fill in some of those gaps of things that didn't maybe click as well or whatever on the first time we taught it. Okay, so that's that, and so on and so forth. Let's get down to the calendar of what we have coming up this week. We don't have huge announcements, but we have a little bit of something every single day. So Monday, we've seen a little bit of news today here. Going into Tuesday, we'll have our live session tomorrow morning. We have some UK CPI numbers, and that's definitely going to be something to look at with some of the pound-dollar trades that we're going to talk about in a moment. And then we have retail sales for the U.S. During the Tuesday morning session. Wednesday, we've got a couple, just the PPI for the U.S. And a little bit of UK news. And then we have employment news for Australia Wednesday afternoon, evening. So that's going to be a pretty big deal. We're going to just watch that right after the wrap-up session. So anybody that wants to kind of trade the Australian numbers with us, just stay on for the wrap-up session. We'll cover the movement there and see how everything goes. And then Thursday, we've got a bunch of U.S. News and news announcements, core CPI and Bernanke speaking and a couple of things like that. And then going into Friday, we have even more U.S. news and a little bit of UK and some Europe news. So there's plenty of things happening this week. We should get plenty of nice movements here. Okay, let's get down to the charts. Does anybody if you have any questions or anything along the way, just type them over. Type in your questions, your comments. I'm happy to try to cover things as I go. And I'll just get to as much as I can get to. So let me know how that whole situation goes, and we'll just kind of cover it, moment by moment here. As you can see in the notes, I definitely had some notes posted from Friday, from even Thursday night and Friday, and then I kind of updated, didn't really update, just kind of looked at everything Sunday night and saw that it was all playing out pretty well. And so there's some of the things we're looking at. I didn't have much on the euro dollar, and I still don't have much on the euro dollar. I just haven't been trading this thing too much lately. And I kind of don't really have any major plans to trade it. We have some long wicks and a couple of things here. This is kind of the euro dollar, at least on the shorter term, is kind of working on a little bit of a bull flag here. And that's about really all I see on this euro dollar at the moment. It's run up and then it's just consolidating sideways. So that's, that's definitely a possibility of a continuation higher. But as we look at the euro dollar and everything that it's doing, for those that attended the webinar, you'll know, that we're looking at daily and monthly charts, or excuse me, 4-hour and daily charts, to try to get movements, the big movements, and see where some of these things are going on the slightly longer term. And the euro dollar is just right in the middle of everything. It's just right in the middle. It's really not doing too much either way. So besides this little bull flag that, it's kind of ugly, but it's forming, if that plays out, then we'll go for it. We'll jump into it. We'll see if we can grab some pips out of this thing. But otherwise, anything beyond breaking that high, I'm just probably not going to do much. So euro dollar is still just, it's just there. I'm kind of curious. Is anybody trading the euro dollar in here? Is anybody interested in euro dollar activity right now? Because I just don't see anything. I don't know if anybody's trading this thing. I mean, there's a little tiny bit of activity here and there, but I really haven't done anything on euro dollar for a couple of weeks. It seems like several weeks even. Yeah, Don. Yeah, good. I'm just not doing too much. This was obviously a nice move. We had non-farm payroll on Friday, and other than that, I mean, it just doesn't do anything. We'll have 1 day of movement and 7 or 8 days of nothing. Donovan, you're still in from 90.70 on euro dollar, huh? You got in 1981. Oh, okay, all right. 137.61. I gotcha. Okay, all right. 137.61. If you're short from there, that's great. That's excellent. Gotcha. Okay, there we go. Good. Sounds good. Okay, so besides that bull flag, there might be a little movement at the breakup there. Otherwise, not doing much at all. Here's the pound dollar. I've been talking about this thing. I talked about it the entire week last week. I mean, the entire week I talked about it. We took a stab at where was it? It was a breakout somewhere back here, somewhere in here. We took a attempt at selling it, and it kind of went a little bit higher. Maybe it was here. I can't remember where it was. So we took a little loss on the euro dollar, or on the pound dollar last week, trying to get some of this bigger movement. But like I said, I've been talking about this thing just over and over, and I'm almost sick of hearing my voice about it. We have this huge rising wedge. We have lots of time since it's touched the 200 moving average, and we have, let's see, if we look at this chart right here, it's a little easier to see on the daily. We have all these clusters of missed pivots. So 160-200, and you can see in the notes here, I was looking to kind of get short against 16600 or sell the break of 16400. So whichever one of those that you did, it gave us opportunities on both of those. You can see that that we made some nice little highs here, about 165. We had a high about 165.15 there, so nice little place to get short against that 16600. And it also broke below 16400 and is still below 16400, not by a lot. So if you got in against those highs, great. If you got in at the breakout, still great. I think this is a great little setup. We've got to get, we really need to make good solid clearance of about 163.75. And I think when and if we do, and I think we're definitely going to much sooner than later, this should very easily pick up momentum very easily into 160-200, and I think we're going to have a pretty good shot into 160.50. So it's going to be all about clearing 163.75, maybe even 163.50. Somewhere in there, and then we should just have such an easy run into that 160-200 and 160.50. So those are the notes, and those still apply. They're still there. Everyone should be in this thing. If you're not in it, I'm going to show you a little opportunity where we can get into that. But you can see those notes. We're targeting 160-200 and 160.50, and so far so good. Again, you know, lots of missed pivots, overextended moving average, and a nice price pattern here, and away this thing is going. And it's looking pretty good. We've got a little bit of rejection off the 200 moving average, not uncommon at all. It's hit this a couple of times. You can see that we're getting a little bit closer every time we hit this thing. It's happening more frequently. So we had some 200 moving average contact here and a big gap. 200 moving average contact, smaller gap. 200 moving average contact, and an even smaller gap. And these are all kind of, it's consolidating onto that 200 moving average on the 4-hour chart, which should perpetuate a nice little breakout to the downside. So I think that's great. What I'm going to be looking for on the pound dollar here is we've had this nice little run down, and so we basically have a really nice little bear flag right here. This has just kind of been running down, trickling down. You can see we have a missed daily pivot up here about 164.15. You can see that on both those, my pivot point indicator and the other one. They're within about a pip of each other. So 164.15, we have this nice little pivot point. And likewise, if we look at the fib levels here, we go from high to low, and we look at that fib level, this has crossed the 23% fib already. So there's a pretty good chance that this is going to make a run up into about 164, somewhere between 164.10 and probably 164.20. And I'm going to be looking to get short in that area. So adding to my positions. It's not a bad idea to lock in profit if you got in at 164.00. If you got into that break of 164.00, don't hesitate to lock in profit and get kicked out of this, you know, at +1 or break even, and then look to get in a little bit higher. And we could get in as high as 164.25.30, but again, between about 164.10 and 164.20 will be a good place to re-enter this pound dollar short and get back into that guy's short. So we have some nice little resistance up there. If it doesn't make it higher, then we'll just trade the break of this nice little ascending trend line area, the bottom of the bear flag. So it's a really nice little bear flag setup. Very typical, very normal. We'll be watching for that. Should be a nice little breakout. But remember, on the larger picture here, this rising wedge is really starting to give way, and we're kind of working on a almost head and shoulders pattern here. It's kind of an ugly one, but I think it could work. And rising wedges are excellent to get into head and shoulder pattern breakouts. So everything's looking pretty amazing here. I'm loving this whole setup. Let's just stay short. Again, look for entries between 164.10, 20. Otherwise, let's get in at the break of this ascending trend line, which will probably be around 163.75. So everything kind of stays put there. So pound dollar is looking awesome. Any questions, any comments about that, please let me know. But that's what I'm looking at on the pound dollar. Okay, so Aussie dollar. Let's flip over to the missed pivot so we can see these pivot points a little bit more easily. The Aussie dollar has been so textbook. This was another one of the setups that we've been talking about, and this is a falling wedge. So we love these little falling and rising wedges because they're just amazing. That's a falling wedge. We broke out, and this thing just consolidated, and finally broke. And finally, just within the last not very long, I think it was. Let me just do this real quick. I got a lot of info on there. Within the last on Friday, that hit the. Let's go back to that. There we go. So on Friday, that hit the 200 moving average on the 4-hour chart, and so this was super overextended. Hadn't touched the 4-hour chart, 200 moving average for a long time, and we have lots and lots and lots of missed weekly and daily pivots. So we have a big cluster up here around 92, 50 area. We've got a daily, weekly, and monthly pivot. We've got the 200 moving average up here and a daily missed pivot, and then we've got a daily and weekly up here. So I think we have a very good opportunity for a 200 pip run up into that 92.50 area. It's broken out. It's moved nicely. We had our rising and falling wedges, and they've just been playing out so textbook perfectly. So what I want to see happen here on this Aussie dollars, I need to see this thing dip down a little bit and find some support. I'd love to see it come down and hit this current weekly pivot right here around 89.60 area and kind of just make a dip. And so there's not quite a play just yet, but I think if we can get down to some of those areas, that'll give us a good opportunity to buy. So I'm kind of just sitting on the side on the Aussie dollar for the moment and looking for some entries, probably around 70 to 80 pips below current market price. So that's what I'm going to be looking for on the Aussie dollar. Our long-term setup is looking great and playing out very nicely, and we have lots of targets up there. So short-term, we're targeting 92.50 on the long Aussie dollar move. But I'd like to get us just below the 90 level before we start buying into that. So the Aussie is going to be, again, this is kind of the weekly outlook. So the Aussie is going to be, it's going to need some, a little bit of pullback and a little bit of consolidating, a little bit of relaxing before we start jumping into this thing. So let's look for 60, 70, 80 pips worth of pullback before we start getting long Aussie dollar. But I think that's going to be a great opportunity with a 92.50 target. Let's talk about some other fantastic winners that we've had. So Aussie yen, we haven't been doing much there. Pound yen, if you go to our notes here, you can see, yeah, we're going to talk about the Euro Aussie. Don't you worry about that. That is a favorite, so we're definitely going to cover that one. Pound yen, you can see that we had a couple of levels, 172.20 and we had 173.15. And guess what in the world this pound yen did? It made a massive break. Here's our 172.20 area, and from that breakout zone it has barely moved down 380 pips. It's pulled back a little bit, so it's only 300 pips in profit. But huge movement. So we love the pound yen. That's such a great little movement. So that thing from our entry on from the notes that I posted on Friday has moved 380 pips, and it's pulled back now 70 or 80 pips. So it's still hugely in profit. Good, Scott. I hope you got some of that pound yen. That was such a great mover. Good grief, 240 pips. Well done. Well done. So yeah, very nice movement on that one. Remember, the pound yen exhibited some very there you go. That one is worth canceling appointments for sure. We had some really nice stuff going on with this pound yen. Remember, once again, we have all these missed pivots. Long time since we've touched the 200 moving average. And we had a very nice price pattern right here, which was this rising wedge. And you can see that this thing broke out of that rising wedge right there and just had that huge, massive candle, and it took it way down in a really nice movement there. You can see on the pound yen, on that initial run, we were looking to target 50 to 100 pips. It obviously blew right past that, no questions asked. And should be able to continue down a little bit more. I think some of our longer term targets are going to be, I think we have a very good opportunity for a bigger correction. I think about 165.50 to 16600 should be a pretty easy target. So I think we should have another 300 pips. So I'm going to be looking for a little bit of pullback on this pound yen. See if we can get this thing a little bit higher, and then we'll start shorting. I don't have any targets just yet on this one to enter, or excuse me, not targets. I have targets, but I don't have any entry points that I'm super excited about just yet on pound yen. So I'll kind of keep you guys updated on that, but just know that I'm still targeting about 16600 probably, to say the least, on that one going forward. But huge, fantastic movement, such an excellent run, 300 plus pips from Friday, just great. Another one that we had in the notes here, and we'll talk a little bit more about this one, was Euro Yen 14200. Sell the break of 14200. targeting 140.100 and 140.50. So if you sold the break of 140.200 and got out at 140.100, which was right on that little dip right there, of course, that's about 100 pips. And if you decided to stay in a little bit longer, it just touched. It went just below. Had a low of 140.49. So depending on your spread, if that was your profit target, you may or may not have gotten out of that, but you should still be nearly 100 pips in profit on that euro yen. So the euro yen broke out and just moved beautifully, beautifully, super well. So very nice movement on the euro yen. You can see that we have a daily pivot right here. So again, for those of you that attended the webinar, you know what to do with this daily pivot. It's still a little ways out, about 24 hours out before we can do much with that, but euro yen's looking good. I'm going to be looking to get back into the euro yen as well. We have a very nice head and shoulders pattern forming on this guy. Our initial target of 140.50 has basically been hit, not all the way, but pretty much been hit. So we're still going to have some nice opportunities to trade down into that 140.50 area, and we have another big huge cluster down here in the mid to high 130s, and I think that's a really very possible profit target. So we're still looking to get this into 136, 13700, right around there. So let's kind of hang tight on that one. I have some very specific, euro dollar, trade the break of the bull flag, pound dollar, trade the break of the bear flag, or get in a little bit above 16400, around 164.10, 20 area. Aussie dollar, we want to get in, around 89, 65, 75 area. So those are all good. Yen pairs, we're kind of in a little bit of a holding pattern. We've had huge moves and made huge profits on these runs, and now we have to wait just a little bit to see where we start to get some signals and some turning points and some possible entries. So of course we'll talk about the pound yen and the euro yen during the morning session tomorrow and during the afternoon session tomorrow. So I think we're going to get some good trades over the next 12-24 hours out of the euro yen and pound yen. And remember, we're going to be looking to trade euro yen down to the mid to high 130s and pound yen down to the mid 160s, about 165, 166. And euro yen down to about 137, 138, somewhere in there. So that is all good and hanging on. Nothing too much on gold, nothing too much on dollar CAD. We do have a nice little double top kind of in the works here on this dollar CAD. We've taken out a couple of missed pivots and so on. This one still looks like it's probably good to get long at some point, but I'm not really doing too much on the dollar CAD just yet. So let's keep an eye on this one, but no major moves there. Okay, euro Aussie. This one has been just playing out like crazy or crazy. So the pound, good grief, the euro Aussie. I've been talking about this one and some of the things I'm looking at. Again, if we go to this chart right here, you can see on the euro Aussie a couple of things that I'm looking at. So I talked about, in the webinar and even in some of the live sessions we had last week, I talked about this one and what I was looking for. We had a perfect double top. This thing's working its way down. We still haven't hit 150, although we got pretty close to it. We got to about 150.27, and then it's bouncing back up. I think 150 is going to be an easy target, and honestly, I think this euro Aussie is going to make its way down into the mid 140s. So I'm looking for 145, 146. At least on the euro Aussie, at least I'm looking for that to be hit. So what we're going to be looking for on this one, we've been breaking lows and doing a couple of things. I talked about this a lot in the in last week's session, and I talked about the fact that if we couldn't find a really good entry, we would trade the break of, let's go back to this chart for 2 seconds. We would trade just the break of this test of the 200 moving average, which was 151.15. So it broke that, it ran down 85 pips, and it's retracing back. So if you got in there and now now you're down a couple of pips, or if you got into some very higher prices up here, which hopefully some people did as well, remember we're still targeting 146, 14700 minimum right now. Those are our minimum targets. We have a couple of little, wicks that are looking pretty strange at the bottom there that look like they might be aggressive. I'm not worried about them at all. I think this Euro Aussie is going to have a pretty easy run down into that 14700, so I'm going to hold on for that. If you're a little nervous right here and you got in, at 151, 10 or 05 and you're down 15 pips or so, don't hesitate to close it out, take a quick entry, or excuse me, a quick exit, and let's look at entering against some of these higher areas, maybe around the 200 moving average or somewhere in that general area. I'll have more on my entry on this one coming up, and see where this one goes. Dan, yes, for my earliest entries that Rob and I did on some of our webinars, definitely we've locked in profit, moved stops into profit, and even taken some partial profits on that one. I haven't been talking about it in the group a bunch because Rob and I did it on a webinar, and some were there and some weren't, and so that's kind of why that's been a little bit on the down low. But I did talk in the group about those that aren't in yet that are looking for entries and so on. So yeah, stops are moved into profit for sure. Definitely moved into profit. And Gustavo, yeah, I think weekly pivot would be a great area to start adding some positions. I kind of want to see this play out just a little bit, but I think that could be a very, very good area up around 15200 to start adding more shorts to the Euro Aussie. Good, Gustavo. Excellent. Yeah, this is a great little trade. This thing's just rolling along like crazy. So we'll be looking at around 15200 to add to those shorts. And remember, our longer term target is 147, even 14600 on the shorts on this Euro Aussie. So again, for those that aren't members of the group, you'll probably want to at least get a trial this week and jump in and join us and see how this Euro Aussie plays out. It'll be group member stuff only. I'll send out some charts and so on of some things that I'm looking at, but specific entries will be posted here in the group as the week goes on and as we get entries on that Euro Yen, Pound Yen, Euro Aussie. So keep that in mind. And those are kind of the ones I'm looking at for the moment. There's nothing else too much catching my attention besides, again, my focus is all on Euro Dollar, Pound Dollar, Aussie Dollar, Euro Yen, Pound Yen, Euro Aussie. So that's a lot of pairs we're looking at. It's not just a few. So we have lots of opportunities and lots of great trades coming up here. So let's keep an eye on that. Excellent, Rodica. EuroCAD, PoundCAD, 160 pips. That is great. Similar setup. Excellent. And you were in the webinar on Saturday, right? Our pivot point webinar. Oh, okay. All right. Didn't make it. Excellent. So those are definitely some of the things that we would look at for sure. So, but very well done. Excellent on that. Okay, guys, any questions, any comments? Questions, comments. I'm going to update the notes here in the chat, and I will post this video and I will send it out for everyone to see. So it's going to go out to everybody. You can watch it, have a look at it, let me know what you think, and we'll take it from there. So questions, comments, any pairs you want to look at, send them right over. I'm happy to comment on them.